All right, sweet. So I just went on mute. If you do have a question, throw it up in the chat box. Otherwise, I will open it up afterwards. So first and foremost, you guys, welcome. Appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for pushing pause on your day. For those of you, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so I appreciate you coming in at 9 a.m. to start your day with me. Welcome to Cardone On Demand. My name is David Bradley. I'm going to be your host today. I'm going to be guiding you through some of the ideas of this program, why it exists, why we have this now. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I've been following Grant Cardone since 2003. I got into the auto industry into 2002, did not have a lot of training or support. I was kind of left to my own devices. And so basically I didn't get by very well. I went from barely surviving in car sales to management within about 9 months after finding Grant, finding his material, getting support from him in his office. So in 2011, I got this really awesome opportunity to come work with Grant and to deliver this content to other people. So since 2011, I've had the privilege to be able to work with over 225 different companies, over 5,000 salespeople, to literally help deliver training content that puts you guys at cause for your success, gives you the tools that you need so that you can literally create your economy. You don't have to be dependent on something else. It's not anything can happen Thursday. It's literally you're in charge of your success. And so one of the things I always like to point out at the beginning of these conversations, we've got signs all over our office in our main office in Miami Beach, signs that are peppered across the office to keep people motivated, engaged, inspired. One of them is this one here that you can see. Have goals so big, your problems pale in comparison. And so what I want to invite you to start doing right here and now is to start thinking about, man, how big are my goals? What are my goals? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But how big does my goal need to be to where whatever little challenges are going on in my world right now, they don't seem that big a deal? And that's, you just want to start thinking big, okay? And the guy that helps us think big is this guy right here. So who is Grant Cardone? So Grant Cardone, he's the CEO of the #1 sales training company in the world. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's written 6 business books since the economic.
Yeah, I've started already.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Thank you.
We've also created the fastest growing online sales training university, which is this. This is what you have access to now. We've delivered over 27 million lessons since we kicked this off in 2011. What that means to me and what I think is important for you guys to recognize is that means that over 27 million times, folks like you and I have come to this program every single day to get a solution, to get an answer, to get motivation, to rehash a skill set, learn something new, and at the end of the day, follow through with Grant's quote, as you can see here. Refuse to be tomorrow who you are today. Our VP of Sales puts it a little differently. He says, be better today than you were yesterday. Because of our outflow, Grant has also become the #1 sales expert to follow on social media. So if you haven't connected with Grant socially, we want to invite you to do so. Find him on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn. He has a presence in all of those places and loves connecting with our clients and interacting with them and engaging. So whatever medium you personally like, feel free to hook up with him over there. So let's just talk about what we're going to do today. Today we're going to do a very quick overview of Cardone On Demand. We're going to look at how to use this program as a way to increase your sales production and then hit your personal targets. So what I'm going to open this conversation up with, and the reason I was suggesting you get a notepad, is we're going to do a couple exercises here. You may want to jot some stuff down. You may hear some things today that you're going to want to keep with you for a while. And then we're also going to do some exercises. So first thing we're going to look at are your goals and your dreams. Before you can get somewhere, it's really important to know where you're at. But you want to have big goals. You want to have big dreams. And so what I always like to ask at the beginning of these conversations is, man, who and what are you going to work for every day? One of the things that I learned very early on from Grant was that you don't go to work to work. You go to work to prosper. You go to work for your dreams and your goals. You go to work for your future self. And so I want you guys to start thinking early about, man, what am I doing every day, right? I'm here. I'm going to spend 12 hours at a dealership, right? Who's that for? What's that for, right? So if you scroll, if I pop down to the next slide, as I mentioned, it's really important to know where you're at so you can lay out how to get to where you want to be. So the exercises we're going to do right now is, number one, jot down how many units you sold last month. And because the month's almost over for us, we may want to look at how many units we've sold this month as well. Where are we at, right? The real question, though, becomes how many units would I have liked to have sold last month? I mean, if you were at 18, could you have done 22? If you're at 22, could you have done 28? Could you hit 30? If you're only at 12, could you have gotten to 20 somehow, or 18, right? How many units would you have liked to have sold this month? How many units would you like to sell this month? There's a couple days left. How are we going to get there, right? And then what does that mean for you in terms of dollars and cents? How much did I make in March? What am I on pace to make in April? But the big question, is it enough? And the reason I want you to ask that question and answer yourself honestly is because I want you guys to be proud of what you do, but not satisfied. And I hope the answer to was it enough or is it enough is no. There ain't nothing wrong with more. Speaking of which, let's start thinking bigger about that. Jot down your income and your volume goals for the next 6, 12, and 18 months. We're going to take a second to really do that, to take a hard look at, hey, I've been using Cardone on demand. I've been using this brand new training program that Hertz hooked us up with for the last 6 months. And in those 6 months, here's what's happened to my production. Here's what's happened to my income. What does that look like to you 6 months down the road? And then what does 12 months look like down the road? Man, I've been on this thing for 12 months now. This is how many more cars I'm selling, an extra, 8, 9, 10, 15 units a month because of this thing. That means I've made this much money. So really put yourself into the future. Sit in there and look at, man, how much, it's 18 months down the road now. A year and a half I've been doing this. Where am I at now? How have I improved? How much more money am I making? How many more cars am I selling? And let's tie that in. I want to tie that into a big, fat, juicy goal and dream that you have. What's one thing that's on your bucket list? What's something that gets you jacked up and excited to do? I've got 2 right now that are really get me motivated. The one main goal, or like in terms of like big, fat, juicy goals, I would love to at some point hop on a boat. Could be a sailboat, could be a small yacht. I'm open on that. But I want to hop on a boat and I want to sail to Tahiti. I want to take 2-3 weeks to get there. I just think that'd be awesome. On the open ocean, couple weeks, go down to Tahiti, arrive in Tahiti, hang out for a little bit, and then fly home first class. Man, that'd be awesome. When I start thinking about that, I break a little bit of a sweat, right? Another thing that I think would be great is to host, my family. It's a big, fat, crazy Irish Catholic family with a bunch of maniacs, right? But we do this huge party for Thanksgiving every year, and it's at my cousin's house, and he hosts it. But you know what? One of these years, I want to do that. And I live kind of far away, so that means people have to get here. People have to find places to stay. People have to, I want to have enough money where I can just fly everybody in, put them in hotels, rent a nice little facility, and do this amazing Thanksgiving party. That motivates me. That gets me jacked up, right? So what is it for you? What are your big, fat, juicy goals and dreams? What does a great life look like to you? And then the question becomes, how will you make those dreams a reality? So when you start thinking about what your big, fat, juicy goal and dream is, what's that going to cost you? How many extra cars is it going to take to sell? How many customers do you need to get in front of every day? How many write-ups do you need to do? How many appointments do you need to set? How many phone calls do you need to make to do that? And once you have an understanding of that, then you can literally put a plan in play to accomplish your goals. I was talking to a young man about this recently, and I said, hey, what motivates you like that? What gets you jacked up? Because I want to take my daughter to Disneyland. I know exactly what her face is going to look like when we walk in. Like, well, how much is that going to cost? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, let's figure that out. Right? So we sat down together and we figured out exactly what it was going to cost for him to get there. And he wants to fly first class, right? Fly first class, go to Disneyland, stay at the resort, do the whole deal, fly home. So now he knows. Now he knows how many extra cars he needs to sell to hit that number. He knows how many customers he needs to get in front of every single day, how many phone calls he needs to make, how many appointments needs to be set. He knows exactly. So when he goes to work every day, man, he's not going to work to work. He's going to work to take his daughter to Disneyland, right? So the question then becomes, once you know what your goal is, once you know what it's going to cost, once you know what it's going to take, what do you need to know to get there? Because if you're looking at this quote I got right here, knowledge is what's going to close the gap between your reality, which is where we are, where you're at, what we just wrote down, and your true potential, which is now what you just said is your big, fat, juicy goal and dream. That's your next level. That is your potential. That is what you are capable of doing. Once we get there, then we'll upgrade from there. But let's just get to the first one first, right? So what do you not know? So what I want to do, the next exercise we're going to do, and then we'll get into the program, is I want you guys to have an honest personal assessment of your current skill level as a sales professional. So I want you to rate your skill level in the following 4 categories, and I'll break them down. Prospecting, selling, closing, follow-up. Scale from 1 to 10, 1 being god-awful, 10 being you're an absolute rock star. Where do you fall when it comes to prospecting, selling, closing, and follow-up? So just start writing them down. Be very honest with yourself about that. Prospecting means your ability to generate your own traffic. How liberating would it be to never have to rely on walk-in traffic and incoming calls ever again? That is not the main primary source of your revenue. So what's your skill level on that? So rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10. What kind of a prospector am I? The next thing I want you to look at is what kind of a salesperson you are. How good are you at the art and science of selling? Selling and closing are very different things. Selling for us means that you can greet a customer, you can figure out what's important to them, you can show them the right product, you can land them on the right product, do a bang-up presentation, and then bring them inside to look at numbers. That's selling. Closing is to help this guy make a decision. Closing is shutting a deal down. And I think you guys would agree with me, and you probably know people that are really good at selling but have a challenge when it comes to closing. You probably know people that are amazing closers but not really good at the selling piece of the puzzle. So where do you fall into those 2 brackets? So rate yourself, be very honest about that. Fourth one is follow-up. Where are you at in terms of follow-up? What is your follow-up game like? Here's an interesting statistic. Did you guys know that 48% of the salespeople in your market don't follow up? They just don't even bother to do it. Okay? Of the 52% that do, only half of that group makes 1 or 2 attempts, and then they quit, they give up. They make a decision about the customer. So if you want to have an immediate competitive advantage over 75, that takes you beyond 75% of your existing competition, you just need to figure out a way to follow up with your existing client base 8 to 12 times. Because it takes 8 to 12 attempts to get somebody on the phone. It takes 8 to 12 attempts to get somebody to agree to move to the next step in a process. It takes 8 to 12 attempts to land an appointment or to get somebody to even pick up the phone. Right? You guys get internet leads. How hard are those people to get a hold of? So how strong is your follow-up game? So that's the next thing, that's the last one you're going to rate yourself on, okay? So now that you know where you are, you know where your opportunity for growth is, how do we apply that in our program? How do we plug into our daily life and handle the missed opportunity? So that's where Hertz Sales University plugs in. This is where this program pops up for you to be most effective. So moving forward in the call, I'm going to just sort of break down some of the things that the program is going to be able to do for you. When you log in, if you don't have a username and password, send me an email and make sure you get one. When you log in, this is what you're going to see. This is your main menu. This main menu, it's literally all about you. First thing you're going to see when you pop in is this box. This will get you into the training center so you can get to work. But what I also want to make sure you've got some clarity on within this main menu are these 8 boxes here and the data down below. So starting from the bottom, I'm going to work my way up. Right here, this is going to show you how many times you've signed in this month. It's the 27th of the month. So if this number was 2 or 3, might be a problem. If this number was 34, that'd be cool, right? So just looking at this, you're like, am I doing enough, right? You'll know immediately. Your training activity, are you on pace to meet the expectations that Hertz has laid out for you, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is where you go to find out what that is. This is going to show you how many videos you've watched, tests taken, passed, failed, the whole 9 yards. Then what have you looked at lately? What have you been looking at lately? So if you saw something and you want to get back to it, it's right here for you. But to also add to that and to take that a little bit deeper, we've built out this report card. When you click onto my report card, it's going to pull up a list of everything we have, our entire curriculum, and you can see what you've looked at and what you have not. Where it says my usage report, this is going to show you, again, your activity in the program, more detailed than this one down here. This one is going to show you how many times you've logged in, how many tests you've taken, passed, failed, what your failed to pass percentages are, what the total number was, how many of the segments you've watched were unique. Gives you a really good overview as to what you're doing in the program and what you're getting out of it, and you can also filter it. So if you want to look at what you were doing yesterday or last week or last month or last year or any combination, you can do that. When we pop over to my favorites, the little heart, as you're watching some of these videos, you're going to see stuff that you're like, man, I want to watch that again. I'm going to need to come back to that later, or I need to show that to so-and-so, or my manager should see that, or something. You can mark it as a favorite, and then it goes into this box, so you can access it pretty quickly later. There's also a box within the video that you're watching. It's a little tab, and it's going to say notes. So if you want to take some notes on a very specific video, or it reminds you of something, you're like, hey, I could have used that with Mr. Jones last night, put the note in there, save it, right, and then it goes in here. So you can access that later and get after it. As you know, there are certifications. You had certifications on previous training programs. This is no different. This is where you'll go to access your progress through each certification level and print certificates. I'll talk a little bit about the certification path in just a moment, but just so you can stay on point and stay on with your activity in it, it's right there. The calendar you can use literally to give yourself assignments. Hey, I want to watch this segment next week, or I need to show it to so-and-so next week, or if you're a manager and you're on the call right now, if you want to assign specific segments to your people to watch, you can pop in there and do that as well. So this is the main menu. This is literally there for you so you can navigate our site really easy. If I move into the certification path, we'll talk about that a little. For salespeople, when you log in to the certification path, the first one that's going to be highlighted is your level 1 certification. It will be available to you, or this will be the only thing you can access for the next 30 days. So we want all of your training to pop to come from what's in level 1, which I'll show you in a second. Once the 30 days have gone by, level 2 is going to open up. And then after level 2 opens up, every 60 days we're going to open up another level. So level 3, level 4. So by the end of this thing, you're going to be at 210 days of certifications. Now, this doesn't mean that you got to jam all of level 1 into this 30-day window. It just means it's open for 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, level 2 opens up. You don't have to jam all level 2 in 60 days. This is going to be more of a self-paced training. There are some expectations, obviously, but you don't have to rush your way through it or try and slam it, because that's just going to get in the way of your ability to learn it. Okay? So speaking of self-paced training, let's look at some of the best practices associated with that. As you guys know, the pay scale is based on your levels complete. The good news for you, if you've been with Hertz for a little bit, is that whatever level you're at right now is going to grandfather over. We're not going to take anybody back. Nobody's going backwards on the deal. You're just moving forwards all the time, okay? Best practices on this program, 2 to 4 segments every single day. Now, the average length of a segment in our program is anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes. There's content in here that can be a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. There's segments in here that you'll find, 9, 10 minutes. But on average, we're looking at 4 to 6 minutes per segment, and that really works out to be about 12, 20 minutes a day. That's going to be your sweet spot, okay? Just so you've got a reference point, we do 6 in our office. It's a condition of employment. You got to do 6 segments every single day, or 30 minutes. And And that's just a requirement if you want to work for Grant. That's what has to happen. All right. So let's get into these certification levels. This is what level 1 looks like. We're going to do the fundamentals of selling. We're going to go over information-based selling. We're going to talk about incoming calls and internet response. Now, the fundamentals of selling, whether you've been in this business for 20 minutes or 20 years, I promise you, guaranteed 100% that you will get something new out of the fundamentals of selling. For those of you that have been at it for a little bit, you're going to see stuff that you forgot. You're also going to learn new material, and you're also going to be able to solidify things that you already knew instinctually but couldn't quite articulate. You're going to see stuff you're like, I've known that for years, right? But you just weren't able to like put a word on it or articulate it, right? We all have that. So the fundamentals of selling, it's not about selling a car. It's about building a foundation as a sales professional. You can't revisit this enough. I've had access to this thing since 2011. I go through the fundamentals every 3 months roughly. And every time I learn something new, promise you. I get a deeper understanding of one of the concepts in there. Or once I find something that I hadn't thought of, or I think about it differently, if that makes any sense. So when we pop into information-based selling, this is literally Grant's sales system, where you use information as a method of guiding a customer through their decision-making process. Pioneered it. It's had a huge impact on every company we've ever worked with. Not a lot's going to change for what you do, but there's some really great data in there to understand how to use information to move somebody through a purchase experience. Speaking of which, incoming calls and the internet response, as you guys all know, we can all attest to this. I mean, how much has the auto industry changed in just the last 5 years, more or less 15, 10, 20, right? Massive, night and day stuff. The average consumer, by the time they get to you, whether that's a phone call on the internet, they're 57% through the shopping process. 57% of the way done, 57% of the way closed, 57% of the way decided on who, what, when, where, why, and how we're going to do business, okay? By the time a customer submits an internet lead to you, they've spent 15 some odd hours online researching. When they actually go to a dealership now, back in the 90s, the customers usually went to 6 to 8 dealerships before making a purchase. Now, it's 1.2 to 1.4. So that means when they call and they email, they're really close to doing something. And it's very important that we handle these guys correctly. There's a really good chance that a customer on the phone is more ready to buy than a guy that just walked in. So you want to make sure that your phone game is on point, that your internet responses are on point, okay? That's level 1. When we get into level 2, though, now we're going to start looking at, well, we've got them into the dealership. Now what? How do we greet somebody effectively? How do we find out what's important? How do we guide them through that process, put them on a demo, get them inside to look at numbers? Once we've done that, how do I close the deal? And then if I don't close, how do I follow up? We talked about follow-up earlier, right? So this segment here literally is going to get you everything you need to not just follow up with somebody 12 times. There's a year's worth of follow-up material in here. You could stay on somebody for 365 days, stay on point, stay out of obscurity, and get them back. The final piece of level 2 is, what does it take to be great? One of the things we want to help you guys do is elevate your game. We talked about this in the very beginning. Be better today than you were yesterday. And success is no different than any other skill. If you can duplicate what other people have done that worked, you too can have that success. So here's 65 different ways to become great. 65 different traits that every great salesperson employs in their life every single day. So we'll go through that. That's level 2. When we get into level 3, we're going to revisit incoming calls and internet response. So for those of you who just went, oh, we got to do it again? Yes. Now here's what's happening. 90 to 100 days have passed, maybe more, since you saw that content. That means you are a different human being. That means you've had experience to add to your knowledge wealth. How you see this material now versus how you saw it in the beginning, totally different. It will be new content to you, assuming you watch it right, okay? And the other piece of that is it's this important. It is this important to get your game tight. And if you look at any professional, they go back and they rehash stuff, right? So if you look at boxing, for example, Floyd Mayweather, when he first started, his jab, he's been jabbing or practicing the jab for years. His early jab is very different than his current jab, right? Because he's gotten better. But the jab is the jab is the jab, but it gets different, it gets better, and he continues to improve on it. So same idea with that. We're going to bring it to your phone and your internet game. Prospecting, we talked about this earlier. If you master the content and prospecting, I guarantee you'll never have to be dependent on showroom traffic ever again. Up here, 100 ways to stay motivated. Motivation is like fuel, right? We put gas in our car so our car can get us from point A to point B. In order for you to get from your point A to your point B, you got to stay motivated. And because it's like fuel, that means it runs out. So you got to keep topping off your tank. In this segment here, there's 100 ways, 100 ideas, 100 tips with exercises, strategies for you to stay motivated every single day. And those segments are short. They're like 1-2 minutes long. Level 4, and your final certification, we're going to revisit road to sale, follow-up, closing, and deal because they are that important. But at this point, 200 some odd days have passed, maybe more. What also has happened, as we talked about, you're making some money now. You're making more money than you were when you started. You've got some serious cash flow issues. Like, man, what am I going to do with all this stuff? So what we did was we got a personal finance course from Grant. Now, if you don't know much about Grant, in addition to what he's doing here, he's also in real estate, multifamily. He's built a real estate empire that is pushing $1 billion and has made hundreds of millions of dollars for himself and his family several times over. He has generational wealth. So he's probably a good guy to talk to about what to do with your money when you start hitting it, which you guys are about to do. So after level 2, we're going to open the program up even deeper for you. Okay, so while you're working on your certifications, you will also have the ability to pop in and look at some other content within the program. Handling objections in interactive role play is literally a place for you to practice virtually, or if you're going to role play with coworkers. But I would much rather have you practicing virtually or on a coworker than on a customer, right? Because practicing on your clients is expensive. We're also going to open you guys up to being able to have what we call solutions-based training. So remember earlier, we were rating ourselves on a scale from 1 to 10 in those following areas. The question I would want to ask you is, you know, what do you need to tighten up to pick up an extra 5 units next month? The follow-up tool is literally a place to go where you're like, man, I got to call this guy. I haven't seen him in 5 days. What am I going to say if he picks up the phone? How do I follow this guy up today? What kind of message do I leave? What kind of email should I send? Do I do a personal video now? Or whatever confusion you may have about how to follow somebody up, you pop into the follow-up tool. Grant will give you an immediate solution. I'm going to dig into pick your problem a little deeper, though, because it's a very important piece of the program. The question I threw out there, I did it rather quick, so I'll say it again and I'll do it slower. Ask yourself this question. What's one thing I need to tighten up? What's one thing I need to improve on that if I did, I'd sell an extra 5 cars next month? Whatever the answer to that question is you're going to find it in here. Hey, do I need to tighten up my greeting? Do I need to get people on the right product, right? How many times do we work the deal to find out we're on the wrong car? Trade in an issue for me? Is that where I get a little uncomfortable, right? Maybe I need help writing more people up. Man, if you just wrote up 80% of the people that you encounter, you'd sell more on accident, right? So how do I get my write-up game going? Do I need help closing? Am I getting beat up on a price call? Everyone's calling for the best price. They're just kicking my butt, right? Maybe you haven't sold anything in 8 or 9 days and you're about to make that decision. You know the decision I'm talking about? The one where you're like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to sell anything ever again. I wonder if Starbucks is hiring. Man, what am I going to do? Right? You start crapping out. You start going negative, right? Need help improving my attitude. That's right here. I need to get more motivated, right? I mean, what do top producers do when they go negative? This is all here for you, right? To solve whatever that problem is that's keeping you from reaching those goals we were talking about earlier, right? So use this prick your problem. It's an amazing piece. I'm going to deliver 7 key words to you guys that I want you to take with you into this program and use these words to create real success for yourself, not just with the program, not just for Hertz, but for you. Okay. These 7 words, I'm going to run them off real fast and I'll break them down. Priority, ritual, discipline, mindset, skill, consistency, correction. Okay. The first word, priority. Every one of these words, I didn't number these things. Notice that? Right? They're all important and they're all of equal importance. I'm assuming everybody's brushed their teeth at this point in the day. Did you brush your teeth this morning? Yes, right? Why? Well, it's a priority. It's important, man. If I don't brush my teeth, there's consequences to that. Sales training should be the same way. You make brushing your teeth a priority, and you suddenly have time for it. If ever you have a concern about, man, I don't have enough time, just recognize you probably haven't made it a priority yet. Because when it comes time to brush your teeth, you make that a priority. You find the time to do it, right? The other thing about that is that when you do brush your teeth, there's a ritual involved, right? There's usually a certain time of day you do it. You usually have a certain process of brushing your teeth and a certain way you go through it. So once you've made your sales training a priority, meaning, hey, it's important to me is brushing my teeth. Once you've done that, right, then you want to ritualize it. So for me, for example, I do my training every single morning in this leather chair right by the window over a cup of coffee on my laptop. And that happens at 7:30, roughly, every single day. You ever go to work and you forgot to brush your teeth? You feel weird, right? Or you go to work and you left your wallet at home, or you go to work without your cell phone, or you feel off, right? That's where you want to be with your training. If you didn't get your training done in the morning, you should feel a little off. Man, something's not right here, okay? So once you've made the priority, once you've ritualized it and incorporated it into your routine, what that's doing for you is building self-discipline. The root word of discipline is disciple, and that means to become a student of. Let me go back to this ritual thing real fast. I almost forgot. If you want to know where your commitment level lies, commitment to those big, fat, juicy goals we talked about, your commitment to yourself, your family, your growth, take a look at your rituals, your habits, and your behaviors every day, and those things will equal your commitment level. There was a time where I was more committed to my Xbox than I was developing as a professional. And so that's where that self-discipline pops in, right? Where you become a student of selling, where you literally study the art and science and craft of selling. Al Pacino is a disciple of acting. Michael Jordan is a disciple of basketball. Who can you think of, right? Who are you thinking of right now that is a disciple of their craft? And when you become a disciple of your craft, when you become, when you've made your training a priority and you've ritualized it, something's going to happen upstairs. Your mindset's going to start shifting. There's 2 mindsets you can have. You can be, man, I always want to get better. I'm always looking to improve. Or you can have this fixed thing where you're like, man, it is what it is. You know, salespeople are born, not made, right? I'm here to tell you that a salesperson is made. Michael Jordan did not pop out of the womb and immediately start dunking balls. If you look back at his history, he got kicked off his high school basketball team, right? There's countless stories where people told somebody you can't be successful, you'll never make it in this industry, and they turned around to become successful. Because at one point they weren't good. They practiced, they made it a priority, they ritualized it, they were students of the game, and they became successful. Grant says his overnight success took 30 years. So what I want to invite you guys to do is to be great today. In the car business, we got a great saying, today only. Today only, be great. You don't have to worry about it this morning, it's gone. You don't have to worry about it yesterday, it's gone. Tomorrow's not here yet. Today only, be great. Be a student of the selling game today only. You don't have to work for Hertz for the rest of your life to become a master at sales. Today only, be great. So once you got your priority, your ritual, your discipline, your mindset, now we're going to go to work on skill. You got to get those 4 in play before you kick into number 5, which is skill. Michael Jordan, I'm going to talk about him a lot because he's just an easy example. This guy practiced harder than he played. This was the guy that in practice would get 3 guys on him, put 6 seconds on the clock, and practice making 3-point shots. Because that way, when he got in the game, when it was crunch time, it was no big deal because he'd done that deal 1,000 times. So what I want to invite you to use the program to do is to practice harder than you play so that when you get into a real situation, you've done it so often in practice that it's no big deal. And in order to do that, you have to be consistent. That's our 6th word. Okay? You got to get frequent before you can get great. If you want to see an amazing example of frequency before greatness, I want you to go to Grant Cardone's YouTube page, pull up, subscribe to it because we're always posting cool stuff over there too. But look at the video quality now and then search the videos when he first started. So go oldest, look at it newest to oldest and then oldest to newest and compare the differences. But look how much content is on there. We were frequent, if nothing else, before we got great with our YouTube page, okay? So you got to be consistent. You got to be frequent. Those are the things that lead to greatness. And the last thing is correction, and this is the most important. This is the cherry on the top, okay? I want one thing clear with you guys, no matter what else happens on this call, if you take nothing else with you, this is it. You are a winner. There are no losers on this call. There's no losers in the Hertz organization. Nobody loses. When you guys are using Cardone On Demand, you are either winning or you are learning. And so one of the best questions you can ask yourself, or 3 questions you can ask yourself after a car deal. What worked? What didn't work? What can I do better next time? Every deal, whether you closed them or you got to follow them up now, you're winning or learning. What worked, what didn't work, what am I doing better next time? And if you would like a worksheet to have on hand to make that real easy, email me, david@grantcardone.com, and I'll get that worksheet out to you right away, okay? It's an amazing worksheet. It's called a Client Interaction Debrief. It puts you at cause for what happened with that customer. It also shows you what you did right and also what you can do better next time so that you're never losing. You're always winning or learning, okay? Last thing I want to do is give you guys a warning, right? So we've talked about all this stuff. We've gone over how to use the program. I just want to drop this warning on you. This is a warning that, man, if I'd have known this when I was in the car business, when I first got into sales, before I got in the car business, man, I sold furniture, did telemarketing, I did all kinds of stuff. Before I found Grant, if I'd have known this, this is going to be worth millions to you guys, okay? This is your warning. I want you to be aware and beware of what we call the OK plateau. I just read about this in a book. This is something I've had some awareness on, but as I was talking about earlier, had a hard time articulating it. This brought it home for me, and hopefully it'll do the same for you. When was the last time you tried to get better tying your shoes? Right? When you first learned how to tie your shoes, there was a learning curve, right? First, you couldn't do it at all. You were horrible at it. And then your mom or your dad started showing you how to do it, and you started getting a little bit of skill. You started getting a little bit better. And then after you practice a little bit, you start pushing them away. You're like, no, I got this. I got this, right? So think about when you first got in the car business, right? Your manager was like, here's how you do it. And you're very confused. And you're like, okay. And then you start getting it, right? And you're like, I can close this deal, right? You start doing it on your own. But then you get to a place when you were tying your shoes where you're like, man, I can tie my shoes. And you know what happened? You stopped trying to get better. This is very a dangerous place for a sales professional to be when you stop trying to get better. You're either moving forwards or you're going backwards. And so my warning to you is to not get in that place where you're like, man, I'm okay. I'm getting my bills paid, right? I'm putting a little bit of money aside. I'm able to, maybe go to the movies and go to a nice dinner every once in a while. Man, I'm getting by. I'm all right. I'm living the dream, right? If you get to that place, you're in a dangerous spot, and I want you to have that warning now, because here's the thing. If something like 2008 happened ever again, you can't afford to be just all right. which brings me to this quote from Grant. Average doesn't work in any area of life. Anything that you give only average amounts of attention to will start to subside and eventually cease to exist. Companies, industries, artists, products, and individuals who continue into the future successfully are those who approach every activity with the outlook that average is just not good enough. So I want to encourage you guys today to literally change your commitment and your thinking to be far above any concept of average you currently have right now, okay? So here's how to get a hold of me. My name's David Bradley. You guys can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at this number right here, 310-777-0352. I'm going to do anything I can to help you. I'm going to open this up for questions. My email address, david@grantcardone.com. It looks like some questions have popped up in the chat box. Sandra wants to know, can you do more than the required in a week to count towards your month? Yeah, you can, Sandra, you can go nuts. You can do as many as you want. What other questions? Looks like that was it. All right, I'm going to turn the mute off. There we go. Questions you guys have for me? What can I do to help? What can I answer for you?
Hi, David. This is Eric over at San Antonio.
What's up, Eric?
I just had a question. You were looking for 2 to 4 segments per day. You guys do 6 over there. Is that inclusive of vacation time or days off? And if not, how do we get covered for that?
I thought would be 2 to 4 segments every day you're scheduled to work.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You got it. Appreciate you asking. Any other questions? All right, so it sounds like I handled everything on the call on my own. If you guys have any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm here to help. I'm here to be of service. I'm here to make sure you guys get everything you can out of us and the program. So reach out to me at any time. Thank you guys for hanging out this afternoon or this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're at. Have an awesome rest of your day. Finish April super strong, and I'm wishing you a big start to May. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.